okay. If your white butt okay.
Sit your $5 ass down.
Lay your ass down. Thank you, Rita. Sit down.
I know. Look at that white goat. Oh, they are so huge. Oh, look, there's a black one.
Black one?
Because I'm black?
Looking for the truth, you are looking for a good laugh. Many of you Negro males, you are jealous because you are not me. You are jealous that you don't have the credentials or the following. You are jealous because you haven't made 1% of the impact I've made on the African race. So I will not be entertaining. And the other reason I'm not going to entertain this, the other reason that I'm not going to entertain this is because for those with a little bit of common sense, if you just read between the lines a little bit, those of you with a little bit of common sense, I think y'all have heard enough from my princess. Y'all have seen enough from me that if you got a little bit of common sense, you will already know what this is all about. If you just got a little bit of common sense, you can decipher. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm sure me and the oldest princess of Pan-Africanism will work this out eventually. I'm sure that myself and the oldest princess of Pan-Africanism, we will work it out. I would never be upset with my own child. I love my babies. We're going to work this out.
And potentially major developments concerning the war in Ukraine, because after more than 8 hours of talks between the United States and Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia, Ukraine has agreed to the terms for a 30-day ceasefire. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Ukrainian officials you can all see at the table. Not at the table, any officials from Russia. And the world, including the American president right now, is waiting to hear what Vladimir Putin is going to do.
I think it's a big difference between the last visit you saw at the Oval Office and this. So that's a total ceasefire. Ukraine has agreed to it, and hopefully Russia will agree to it. We're going to meet with them later on today and tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to wipe out a deal. But I think the ceasefire is very important. If we can get Russia to do it, that'll be great. If we can't, we just keep going on and people are going to get killed.
My source tonight just got back from Ukraine. The Democratic Senator from Arizona, Mark Kelly, is here. And Senator, it's great to have you. As someone who just got back and was on the ground, what are your takeaways about a 30-day ceasefire and whether or not that is something that you think will be realistic?
Well, it would be a really positive outcome from the meeting in Saudi Arabia. I will say I don't think we needed to be here with this reset. What happened last week or 2 weeks ago now in the Oval Office put us in a really bad place from a negotiating standpoint, giving away NATO membership, giving away territory before the negotiations started is not where you want to be walking into a negotiation. And then cutting off weapons to the Ukrainians and cutting off their intelligence. We spoke a lot about that when I was there over the weekend, talking to F-16 pilots, talking to some military commanders about the impact that that had. So that all was very unproductive. Now we're back to a good place, and I hope that we can get the Russians to agree to this. We don't know if they will, but I think folks need to keep in mind that they have broken ceasefires before, and we're going to have to hold them to it. So there should be provisions in there for us to do that.
Does it help strengthen Ukraine's hand, which I know you've been worried about, since they did restart the sharing intelligence and also the military weapons as well, the military aid?
Does it strengthen their hand? I think it does now, but they lost something over these days. So right when I was there, we talked about, I met with F-16 pilots, and they didn't have the overhead imagery that they need. They didn't have the entire picture of certain things that are very important when you're planning a strike that was taken away from them. There were, because of intelligence that they did not have, it was harder for them to react to ballistic and cruise missile attacks. So those things have an impact. I mean, we don't know for sure if additional Ukrainians died because of this, but it is possible.
Yeah. The one thing with this happening in this
fail to understand is actually how our public schools in this country are funded. People don't understand that we have a three-legged stool in the way that we fund our schools. You have your local tax dollars, your federal tax dollars, and your state tax dollars. And so when you make drastic cuts to the federal government, we're talking about your title programs, we're talking about your lunch programs, we're talking about the programs that affect your kids who have extraordinary or special needs. We're talking about all of those things that are going to be affected by draconian cuts such as this. If we want to go in and say that, look, and I think all of us could agree around the table that we're not preparing our kids for a 21st century global economy. If we wanted to start from that premise, and sorry to use, I'm not picking on you, but to use your words instead of whack, 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 whack. If we wanted to start from that premise and figure out how we can better educate our children, there are ways to do it other than draconian cuts. And I think in places like Mississippi, places like Arkansas, places like the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, South Carolina, and North Carolina, they're going to fill these cuts a lot more.
May I respond?
Please. I mean, it's an open show.
As an individual who worked in the education system for 14 years, there's 110,000 high schools in America. The majority of them are in New York, Florida, Texas, and California. Our reading and math scores are the worst in the G7 and the G20 in terms of how many dollars we spend to advance our children.
Okay.
Why? Unions. Unions that keep mediocre teachers in place in every high school in America when we should be firing them. You want to talk about whack as our theme tonight's show? I would like to fire teachers that don't... Wait. And I'd like to pay a lot more to the teachers that advance math and reading scores that push our system forward against every G7, G20 country. We have broken the system long ago through unions, and this is very unpopular.
But what are those cuts actually
what it means is
impact
the lowest paid person in America that deserves a lot more money is a great teacher.
I agree, as a former teacher.
And we can't, in the system of unions in America, we keep mediocrity festering, destroying the education of
respectfully, let me
children.
just tell you how misguided your statement is.
Not at all.
But I mean, I'm just going to point out the fact that...
Thank goodness I'm here.
But you're wrong, and let me tell you why.
I'm 100% right.
No, I want to tell you why you're wrong. Because the bottom 10 states that are underperforming, those states that I'm talking about in the South, let's take South Carolina, for example, or Mississippi. You want to tell me one thing they don't have? One thing they don't have: strong teacher unions. So there is no direct correlation.
They have weak teacher unions?
Or barely
But
any
they
at
have
all.
unions.
Yeah, but that's not the reason these places are failing.
So find
when was
me,
the last time?
if you look at 10 teachers, 4 of them are great. I want to double their salaries.
That's no question. I agree with you.
So why don't you just get rid of unions?
Now what happens if you have a quarter of shame where kids go to school and their heating and air don't work, where their infrastructure is falling apart, where they have to drink unclean water, or they come to school
Send the money
hungry?
to the states. That's what Trump
How
is
does
doing.
that fix the problem I just laid out to you?
Well, you got to fix the unions first, because we both agree bad teachers destroy advancement of
So
children.
I just have a question. Are you saying that the cuts to the Department of Education that happens right now are going to impact the unions?
I would
'Cause don't
rather
actually
the
think-
dollars that are put into running
I know, but
the
you
federal
started talking about something else, but we're talking about the cuts to the Department of Education. I don't think those are directly...
No. You're cutting out the federal mandate and giving it to the state.
They're cutting the bureaucracy.
Yes.
I don't think they're cutting the money. They want to send the money directly to the states.
That's it.
Respectfully, if this bureaucracy that is in place now at the federal and state level, no matter what state you're talking about, we're doing such a bang-up job, we wouldn't have these terrible reading scores. We wouldn't have these terrible math and science scores. Something is broken, and there's one more issue that no one's talking about, and that is the issue of truancy. We've got 30+% truancy rates in some places. Not only can these kids not read, we cannot even find them. The bureaucracy has failed.
I would not disagree. Exactly. I would not disagree with either of you all on the fact that we are not preparing our children well enough.
But you want the state to
But that's
control
not.
this?
Absolutely not. And let me tell you why. I want there to be oversight. I don't necessarily want there to be a bloated bureaucracy, but what I do want is every child in this country to have an opportunity to succeed, regardless. And let me just tell you the biggest problem we have in this country, because you said unions. I will push back on you and say that the greatest problem we have is the fact that children are punished in this country because of the zip code that they're born into. And until you can find me some parity.
Different issue.
No, it's not.
Actually,
because
I mean,
the school sit in those zip codes.
You can solve it with school choice.
Hang on a second, Kevin.
That's-
I mean,
the
I want
problem
you to
is that every
address
choice wouldn't be
what Bakari is saying. Okay, let's say that you get rid of the bureaucracy at the Department of Education. How do you ensure that kids are actually being educated and that they're not just being moved
Do you
out
think
of
at the state level they hate children?
and that they're not just being
You think at the federal level they hate kids?
that they're not just being moved out of the public school system because it's easier
Yeah.
to move them out than to educate them.
The one thing about education you can't deny is the reading and math scores. Unfortunately, that is the metric by which we test.
But do you understand my question?
No, I get it,
That
but
if
it's
you
not
take
dealing
the
with
lowest
the issue.
performing kids and you just take them out of the system, guess what those reading and math scores are going to do? They're going to go up. So how do you prevent schools
For them
from
to
doing
go
that?
up, you need great teachers.
Well, I think there's also a concept of teaching to the test, which actually doesn't create critical thinking skills to prepare people to go out and be thriving adults. You can actually have a student go through college or go through high school or go through grade school. And let me finish. Thank you. And just be taught to the test. And so you literally. You know why? I know because I had an experience. I will never forget. Right? I was a teacher. I will never forget. We were going to take our regions, and we were really wanting to make sure our scores. So we were teaching to the test. The same night, I went home and watched the episode on The Wire, and they taught the exact same thing because they were teaching to the test. We were not preparing my students.
What percentage of your colleagues, when you were a teacher, sucked? How many?
I think that I come from a family of educators.
Everybody
my grandmother was an educator. My aunt was a superintendent. My sister is a teacher. I think teaching is one of the hardest professions.
I agree.
And I think when you wake up every day and you say, I am going to take care of other people's children and try and advance them.
I'm not answering
I don't think every teacher. No. Because I think that it is so easy.
Great.
I think it is so easy for people to be so disrespectful to teachers. It is a hard profession.
You're not answering the question.
In every single profession, there are people who are good and there are people who could be better.
Out of 10.
But the majority.
How many suck? How many out of 10?
All right, let me ask Van a question because
One.
let's say that everybody agrees we're not where we need to be as a country. What's wrong with trying to do something completely different? What's wrong with not just continuing what we've been doing that hasn't been working?
I mean, for me, I think there's more investment that's needed. I think we need to invest into early Head Start. I think one of the hugest indicators on how a kid is going to perform in school later on in their scholastic career is how early they get what they need. So I think there needs to be more investment into early Head Start, more investment into other things that deal with some of the outside factors that keep kids from excelling in the classroom.
And the point that you brought up is really good because I want to, go ahead. Scott.
Well, just over the last 50 years in this country, the amount of money we spend on education has gone this way, but test scores have gone this way. It's not the money.
It's where
I agree with Kevin a little bit tonight because what we're talking about is one, because of the simple fact that he's talking about creating more teachers. And so Kevin's going out on his limb and saying that we need to make sure that we're investing in these HBCUs, in these community colleges, in these technical colleges, to make sure that we're putting and investing and making sure that people actually go to school to come out with these degrees to be teachers. And so I applaud.
All right, the young lady there that's on CNN asked a great question. Welcome, this is Kiy NY7. She asked, what's the harm in, or how about trying something different? Because what's already been going on hasn't worked. It's not working. So the bottom line is Trump was voted in. He's been doing his job that he was voted in to do, and he's doing it different. That's the whole thing. And I think I know that's what's got some people turned upside down in America. And then there was a effect of other countries because of the changes, the swift changes in foreign affairs. This isn't Trump's first run. This is the second time being president of the United States of America. So you knew what to expect. Even if at times it's a little unexpected, you knew what to expect.
It will go to pre-2014 borders when Russia went into Crimea and illegally annexed it. But on this situation overall, Trump has argued that you have to at least talk to Putin to try to get to the table here. Do you believe that that is helpful, given there weren't conversations between Biden and President Putin after Russia invaded?
Well, of course, at some point you have to talk to him. But I always think we should want to negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. Giving stuff up early just shows that we're weak. I think the president thought he was, showing some strength when they were in the Oval Office bullying Zelensky. That was not productive. That's not who we are as a country. This stuff should not be done in front of a camera. And
See, that's what's different about the Trump administration, at least Trump anyway. President Donald Trump, he likes for stuff to be done in front of the camera. We like it too. Anyone that doesn't like stuff being done and they can see it, it's because it's in a disagreement of your views, of your values. I leave my opinion out of it, and I'm looking at the fact that Trump has been bringing things to light for us to see with our own eyes and hear with our own ears. It was Trump and Vance when they met with Zelensky at the White House. What we saw was things we didn't see before. A lot of us are curious about how these negotiations really go down. They come and tell us the end result, but we never get to sit in on the meetings or listen in on the meetings. What they did was they showed us how men get down. Different nations. There's a lot of people in America that have wanted this war to end one way or the other. There's a lot of Americans that wanted Zelensky to stop pouting and being ungrateful for what America has already done. I'm one of them. When they told him about himself at the White House, I felt it was long overdue, and it was a gift to us to see it and see it play out like that. Now, my chat room is an open chat room. Whatever your view is welcome. That's just how it should be. I have my views, but I show both sides when it comes to the news, but I just want to chime in here and there, give a little commentary on it because I can't help it. The situation with Zelensky was something that needed to happen, I think, and I think it played out very well.
But I think right where we are right now, I think Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio made some progress. Let's try to continue the progress. Let's not blow things up again. Let's not go back and I mean, who knows what could happen, but we don't need to stop the weapons support and the intelligence. That would be a mistake to go down that road again. I mean, you see this with tariffs, right?
Yeah.
Bouncing back and forth all over the place. Let's be consistent.
Remarkable to hear you say, though, that you're at least hopeful about where these talks could go. We'll see, obviously, how Russia responds. When you got back from Ukraine, you posted about your trip, an incredibly lengthy thread that everyone should read, I think, just of what it was like on the ground. Yeah. Elon Musk responded by calling you a traitor.
He did. What? Well, that
You're
was
a combat veteran. I don't have to tell
kind
you
of my
that.
reaction when I was flying over Iraq, getting shot at, or flying in the space shuttle. Never once for a second did I think somewhere down the road somebody's going to call me a traitor. But Caitlin, this isn't really about me and what I'm really
not just
concerned.
somebody.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a guy with a lot of power, a lot of influence over this government. I think it says a lot about him. It says much more about him than it does about me. But what really concerns me is veterans that he is firing without cause from the government. These are public servants. I had a disabled veteran in my office the other day that had recently received an excellent performance report, and 3 weeks later, Elon Musk fires him through an email because of poor performance. That's wrong. That's not fair. Fired him without cause. It has ruined his life. And there are 6,000 veterans just like him.
We also saw Todd Young and Lindsey Graham pushed back on what Elon Musk had to say, calling you a traitor. Are you surprised that you haven't heard from more Senate Republicans, or more of your colleagues?
I've heard from them in the Armed Services Committee in the ante room today.
What did they say to you?
Well, we're kind of joking about it. People are. I got to be careful what I say, in public about what my Republican colleagues say, but. We were talking about what he said about me, and it would have been interesting for you to watch if you were in there.
Why? Because they were essentially, without naming them.
We get along very well. I've got very good relationships with my Republican colleagues, and I would say they don't like this kind of behavior.
The Senate Republicans don't like Elon Musk calling you a traitor.
There are a number of them that came up to me to talk to me about this. And yeah, of course, they're not happy with
But
this.
they didn't say anything
I mean, this
publicly.
guy has a very powerful job in the United States government. He's got tremendous influence. After the president, I don't think there's somebody with more influence right now over the federal government than Elon Musk. And he's wasting his time on Twitter, insulting people, insulting veterans, calling me a traitor, calling other people's names. Is this a serious person? I don't think he is. So why do you give him this influence? And by the way, I think it's really important for the American people to know that the reason he's doing all this, the reason he's firing all these people, is so he can create some room so when they give this big giant tax cuts to billionaires, it doesn't add as much money to the deficit and the debt as it would otherwise. That's why he's doing this.
Speaking of what's happening on Capitol Hill, at least 8 senators, Democrats, are going to be needed to pass this funding bill that just passed the House tonight with House Republicans. Are you going to vote yes on that?
I'm decided. There aren't good options here.
Which way are you leaning?
I'm not. So I haven't decided. Shutting down the government is bad. A CR, a year-long CR, ceding all this influence to the White House, this CR that was done just by Republicans. Usually this is done in a bipartisan way, a continuing resolution. We work together on it. This is just Republicans. This gives more power to the White House.
So it'll be hard
and by
for
the
you to
way,
vote for it.
I haven't made a decision yet. But by the way, a CR is also bad in general for the Department of Defense. But shutting down the government is bad for so many people that are going to be laid off. And then they're already shutting down parts of the government. So if it shuts down, what is Elon Musk going to allow to open back up? That's a big concern of mine. How many more veterans is Elon and this administration going to fire? So there's not a good option here.
We'll see which one you decide. Senator Mark Kelly, thank you for your time and for your service.
You will see.
Really appreciate you.
Impacting Hampton Roads. The Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore says the USDA is cutting about $300,000 that they typically use to help feed families in need. The food bank serves, by the way, over 1.5 million meals a month, but around 8,500 of them were covered by this USDA program that's now being cut. The program is aimed for food banks across the country to get produce and protein from local farmers. A spokesperson for the USDA says this program was a pandemic-era program that no longer effectuates the goals of the agency. Their words.
We don't want waste, fraud, or abuse. Of course, no American does that. But the local food charity system is not the place to start.
As more cuts and adjustments are being made by the Trump administration, the food bank says that they continue to monitor the impacts, but believe that the community will help fill any gaps that they may come across. And we know that it is not just federal programs impacting us, Blaine. The cuts of federal workers are also having an impact on really every part of this region.
Yeah, there's a group helping to make sure some of these defense workers are able to get back on their feet. Our Kelsey Jones is here to break down what that looks like. Kelsey, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Well, as government layoffs continue, that means that federal workers are forced to think about what's next. So I caught up with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council to see what they are doing to assist. They tell me they've helped around 100 federal workers, primarily from the Department of Defense, and sadly, they do expect that number to rise in the upcoming weeks.
Layoffs are always hard on a family, on the individual that it's happening to, and for it to happen quickly, that's tough.
The Trump administration is back and forth on further cuts to the federal government, which we're already seeing impact workers right here in Hampton Roads. To put things into perspective, there's about 60,000 federal workers that live in our region, not to mention our huge population of service members. Hampton Roads Workforce Council leaders say around 100 layoffs has happened for defense workers, and families have reached out for resources in the past weeks, leading workforce leaders to expand their efforts, including virtual options to help them. Sean Avery, the president and CEO of Hampton Roads Workforce Council, says there's about 50,000 job openings in our area, and they are working to line them up with the best job that fits their skill set.
We have a whole team that can work on the resumes, can help them do with job preparation, interview preparation. So yeah, our whole team will do that. That's really the resources we provide on a regular basis for anybody in Hampton Roads that's interested in a new job. Our Virginia Career Work Centers or our Veterans Employment Centers, they can get them prepared as they go in for that next career opportunity.
Now, some of those job openings he told me about were in the shipbuilding, healthcare, and information technology sectors. For the full list of jobs and resources from the Workforce Council, you can just look for my story on WTKR.com or inside the News 3 app. Blaine, Aaron, back to you.
Tesla showroom. A live advertisement featuring the president and the man he told Congress last week headed the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk. Now, this was, as the president described it, meant to be a boost to Musk and Tesla, specifically encouraging people to buy those cars. They are having sales issues right now, as you may know, and the president was wanting to help his largest donor. The event took place at the same moment financial markets were plummeting for a second day after weeks of declines, hurting investments and retirement savings. Many economists point to President Trump's tariff policies and the uncertainty around them. A much deeper route was avoided today as the White House eventually walked back Trump's early morning threat to double tomorrow's steel and aluminum tariffs on just Canada. Still, 25% tariffs are scheduled tomorrow for all nations. And there's a highly anticipated inflation report out tomorrow morning. The president spent little time discussing any of that publicly today. He had Teslas to sell.
So what is this one, Elon?
That's the Model Y.
That's a Model Y, so I have a lot of information, including the price.
Yeah.
I want to make a good deal here. You know, I do notice this. They have one, which is $35,000, which is pretty low. What is that all about?
Yeah, what is all that about? Indeed, a photographer for Getty Images captured this shot of the script the president was reading. You may recall this happened a number of times to President Biden as well. Above the president's thumb there, you can see the Tesla models to mention as well as their prices. And below his thumb, you can see the part about how Teslas can be purchased as low as $299 a month or $35,000. It only got more surreal.
It's like driving a golf cart, basically.
No, it's beautiful. Very simple.
It's very simple. So it's literally like a golf cart that goes really fast.
Now, minutes before he said that, the Dow closed down more than 478 points, or just over 1%. The president did make a few comments about the markets and economy.
Do you and your tariff policies right now bear any responsibility for the turmoil we're seeing this week?
Biden gave us a horrible economy. He gave us horrible inflation. And I think the market was going to go very, very bad.
Well, keeping him honest, the S&P 500 was up over 23% in 2024. And as for his statement that the market was going to go very, very bad, that's not what he said about how the markets would be if he was elected. And it's not even how he spoke about the markets just last month.
We're on the verge of soaring markets.
Well, Trump said that on February 19th. On that day, the Dow and S&P were up for the year over 4%. 2 days later, markets declined after a monthly report showing Americans feared higher prices because of tariffs. Markets have continued to fall ever since. Today, he also took a third swing at a question that sent markets tumbling yesterday.
I think there will be a recession.
I don't see it at all. I think this country is going to boom. But as I said, I can do it the easy way or the hard way. The hard way to do it is exactly what I'm doing, but the results are going to be 20 times greater.
By the way, a lot of stocks may have been down today, but Tesla's ended the day up nearly 3.8%. We begin tonight with CNN Chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins, who also anchors The Source at the top of the next hour. I guess today was certainly a sign of how much the president supports Elon Musk.
Yeah, I mean, he was bothered by the fact that his stock was down yesterday. He brushed off the fact that the stock market overall faced steep declines yesterday, Anderson, the steepest of 2025, and since Trump has retaken office. A lot of that, I think, also is in part because, one, Trump is completely serious about his tariffs that he has imposed. Obviously, he's imposed more tariffs in just the last few weeks since he's been in office than we have seen before. And I think, when he had that meeting with the business roundtable this afternoon, about 100 of the top corporation leaders inside the United States, a lot of them had hoped that on the campaign trail, when he talked about tariffs, that it was really just bluster and what we were going to see ultimately with the economy. Obviously, it's not, because we've seen he wakes up in the morning, he was upset with what the Premier of Ontario said. He then said he was going to double the steel and aluminum tariffs that are going into effect at midnight tonight on Canada. They're going into effect on all the trading partners, but he was going to double the ones on Canada. And when he was at this event with Elon Musk, he backed off of that after a call between the premier and Howard Lutnick. But it also really just speaks to his mindset and his view of the stock market overall, Anderson, and how he is not pulling back from his plans when it comes to tariffs just because of the negative reaction from the stock market. Now, with Elon Musk and the Teslas here, I mean, this was something that the president wrote late last night on social media that he was going to be doing today. I don't think anyone realized that it was going to be to the degree of which it was in the South Lawn, where he was touting the Teslas, getting inside of the cars, asking about how much they cost and just going through what they look like. But that obviously had to do directly with Elon Musk's stock being down because of, in part, his role and the tariffs and what the stock market has looked like overall.
Yeah, Caitlin, thanks very much. We'll see you at the top of the next hour. Your guest is Senator Mark Kelly, who Elon Musk called a traitor.
As you know, there's a very strong man in Canada who said he was going to charge a surcharge or a tariff on electricity coming into our country. He has called and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that. And it would have been a very bad thing if he did, and he's not going to do that, so I respect that. But we were just informed that he's not going to do that.
The Ontario Premier calling you and giving you his decision about the electricity surcharge, and you said you were pleased about that. Will you make a different decision now about the tariffs on Canada? Will you reduce it?
At that, but probably so, yeah.
You're looking
he was
at
a gentleman.
Will you reduce it back?
He was a gentleman. Look, I said it before. We give Canada $200 billion a year. We subsidize Canada between all of the things we give them and trade. We give them. We don't have to have cars made in Canada. We don't have to have lumber from Canada. We have tremendous lumber. We have tremendous trees. All I have to do is unfreeze them from some of the restrictions that were put on. I can do that with an executive order. We don't need energy. We have more energy than anybody else in the world.
All right, so that was interesting too. When Trump said that the U.S., I'm Kiy NY7, consider subscribing, sharing your thoughts, because we know you do. The UK pays the most for electricity, by the way. Canada is still threatening to shut off the electricity, which is specifically New York, Michigan, and a few other states in America. What's interesting, too, is if you notice from the title, I put unbiased news because that's what I'm seeking to do. On many media outlets, they're mostly talking negative against Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, which is very interesting to me because we know, just even if you don't know how to count well, a lot of these folks voted for Donald Trump. Why are y'all mad now that he's doing what he said he was going to do? I don't understand it. It's so pathetic, even to me, because I'm so used to looking through a lens through the way the Democrats see things, the way that so-called minorities see things, which is no such thing because Black people are actually the majority, not the minority. But you just see so much against him. So if things were going good and great, folks would have a different tune. Maybe if he was dragging his feet, taking a while to do things, but taking longer to do it, maybe that would please people somewhat. But I'm starting to feel like no politician really pleases people. Either you're not doing enough, we complain, we come out about it, or you're doing too much. So it seems like with Trump, he's doing too much, even to the people that voted for him. Do y'all feel the same way? Do you feel he's not doing what he said he was going to do? Or you didn't think it was going to be this way or that way? Y'all are confusing me at this point. It's like it's easier to just go against someone when they're doing the thing. If it was Kamala Harris as president, we would have a lot of backlash against her as well. But it seems like maybe they would have been nicer about it because she's nice. She seems to be nice. The Democrats, they want things to be nice. If people are poor, they just going to stay poor, but help them while they're poor. Republicans are looked at as being rich and wealthy. They have money. People hate against Republicans and Elon Musk because of his wealth. And I see that first, not his views, because of his wealth. And that seems to be a sad day in America. So I just had to say that I did put unbiased news, but I've been doing my best to show it. But to be honest, if you look at a lot of these media outlets, they are competing to have the worst titles and come down with like the most negative of news. And it seems like that's what the whole pitch is going on right now.
So we spend $200 billion a year subsidizing Canada. We don't have to do that. And frankly, the way that gets solved is Canada should honestly become our 51st state. We wouldn't have a northern border problem. We wouldn't have a tariff problem. They don't have much, they spend very little, as you know, the least of almost anybody on military. And we spend the most of anybody on military. We have a great military. I rebuilt the military during my first time. We're going to have to rebuild it a little bit again. Not that much, but we're going to have to rebuild it a little bit again. But Canada would be great as our cherished 51st state. You wouldn't have to worry about borders. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. And by the way, Canada is very highly taxed, and we're very low tax. We're considered a low tax nation because of me, because I cut the taxes so low. So the people of Canada would pay much less tax.
But just to be
it makes a lot of sense. And by the way, when you take away that artificial line that looks like it was done with a ruler, and that's what it was. Some guy sat there years ago and they said, "Rah." Well, when you take away that and you look at that beautiful formation of Canada and the United States, there is no place anywhere in the world that looks like that.
While Canada grapples with the uncertainty surrounding U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threats, Trump said today that there's a simple way to make a trade war go away.
Canada should honestly become our 51st state. We wouldn't have a northern border problem. We wouldn't have a tariff problem. By the way, when you take away that artificial line that looks like it was done with a ruler, and that's what it was. Some guy sat there years ago and they said, "Rah." Well, when you take away that and you look at that beautiful formation of Canada and the United States, there is no place anywhere in the world that looks like that. It's
Greenland,
so
of course.
nice.
Plus Greenland.
And then if you add Greenland, that's even. That's pretty.
It's going to look beautiful.
Okay, there's a new bill in Congress that is hoping to stop Trump from forcibly annexing the countries he has his sights on. Congressman Seth Magaziner put forward the No Invading Allies Act, which aims to ban funding for the armed forces to engage in operations to invade or seize territory from Canada, the Republic of Panama, or the self-governing territory of Greenland without congressional approval. Democratic Representative for Rhode Island, Seth Magaziner, joins me now. Congressman, it's good to meet you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation.
I have to ask you about your bill. I have to start there, and it feels almost surreal to ask you about the No Invading Allies Act, a piece of legislation to protect Greenland, Panama, and Canada from the United States. Why did you feel the need to do this?
Well, because President Trump has erratically and irresponsibly been talking about seizing territory from allied nations to the United States. Even in his inaugural speech, I was sitting there in the Capitol Rotunda listening to Donald Trump give his speech right after he was inaugurated back in January. And it was a short moment, but there was a line in his speech where he said that the United States would expand our territory. That has not been the goal of a United States president in over a century, and it was shocking to hear. So listen, do I think that Donald Trump intends to invade Canada by force? I think probably not, but we can't take anything for granted. It's insane that we even have to have this conversation, but I introduced the bill just to send the message that the American people don't want this. The polling has shown that it is tremendously unpopular for the president to be talking about invading or seizing territory from Canada, Greenland, or Panama. It's not what the American people want. But unfortunately, we have a leader in Donald Trump who is unhinged and needs to be reined in.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna switch it up. Try to add a little humor in here and there. And then we're gonna switch up the news. That was mostly politics. There's a lot of things that are affecting our lives. So let's just get right to certain things that are going on. If there's something breaking or something going on right now or such, throw that right in there too. So That's what I do. I get the news and give some commentary on some things that we're seeing.
I'm gonna say what needs to be said. Yeah, my little homie got his snot box rocked. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, he got his TV turned off. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, he did. But you know what though?
Don't turn our TVs off.
Part of me is to blame, and part of you is to blame. Yo, I'm so sick and tired because I shouldn't have had to put shit so colorful for y'all to recognize that we was killing us on the battlefield. It was us killing us, not them. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, he got his TV turned off. Yeah, it hurt.
What up, Dr. Umar Johnson? Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Ah, man, what I'm gonna do with you Negroes?
I don't know. What we gonna do with you, Dr. Omar Johnson? Because you've been getting off hinge too. You've been unhinged lately.
Good morning to all my beautiful African queens.
Good morning.
Good morning to all my beautiful African queens. Good morning to all my beautiful African queens. To the elders, to the youth, to all Dr. Umar supporters, male and female. My Swedish African queens, I need me a southern omelet. Where my Swedish African queens at? I need some breakfast. $20,000 for the debate.
Rejected today the Trump administration's effort to keep frozen billions of dollars in foreign aid that had already been approved by Congress. Today's ruling might.
All right, I'm back on. I'm not big on watching and hearing people eat. It's tough. There was a bill that was finally signed last year in 2024. I did a live stream on that to Black farmers. They have been suppressed into lack of making money, etc. So they've been suppressed economically for decades. So they signed a bill where they granted Black farmers that have been negatively affected, and it's usually because of racism, they had gave them a great amount of money. Now some of that seems to be frozen. There's some things going on through the Trump administration that a specific Black farmer that has been very outspoken has been speaking on. So I'm going to listen in as well because I'm a little behind with this information myself.
Only be a temporary setback for the administration. The court did not give a timeline for when the money must be released, sending the issue back to the lower courts. Back in January, the president moved to freeze billions of dollars in foreign aid from the State Department and USAID, causing aid programs around the world to ground to a halt. But the effects are also being felt closer to home by farmers who relied on USAID to purchase their product and distribute it overseas. Our Shimon Prokupes has more.
You ask me why I do it? Well, we feed people, and that's a good feeling. What I produce here, I stand behind my crop. I don't produce anything on my farm that I wouldn't eat. Matter of fact, I'll show you. I'll choose some soybeans for you. Man, it tastes good. I grew them right here on my farm.
What does it taste like?
It tastes like McDonald's hamburger.
No.
Yeah. That's what's in them.
John Boyd Jr. is a fourth-generation farmer. He grows wheat, corn, and soybeans here on his 1,000-acre farm in Southern Virginia. He also founded the National Black Farmers Association, and he's no fan of President Donald Trump.
The president casts a net of uncertainty. Every time he makes one of these wild announcements that people are saying, yay, tariffs to China, tariffs to Mexico, tariffs to Canada, USAID, it's over, it's done. Every time he makes those type of drastic announcements, he affects America's farmers.
Within days of taking office, President Trump dismantled USAID, a humanitarian program that's been a lifeline for the most vulnerable around the world, and a critical source of income for U.S. farmers, paying them hundreds of millions of dollars a year for their crops. He also froze some funding for farmers and rattled trade markets.
We take it totally for granted. And what we're doing in this country right now, we're gambling with all that.
Gambling with farmers.
Gambling with farmers' lives. They're gambling with my life. They're gambling with my livelihood, man.
Now I have to say, I'm still not really understanding why the U.S. has to have aid as well. They're a lifeline. The U.S. has been a lifeline for certain areas. How about other countries to join in and be a lifeline? Why does America feel that they have to bail everyone out? And when America tends to bail people out, America gets something in return. America has a lot of theft in its history, period. So they got a lot of making up to do with a lot of people that are already in America. So I'm not anyone that was always like, yeah, help other people. When I was younger, yeah, because I probably was just thinking through an innocent child mind and saying, hey, why don't we help other people? We can help them. No. Now, the farmers that are here, like himself, yes. But we should be aiding America and then whoever's mostly affiliated with America. Giving out free aid, I don't see how it's never ending. And you're always depleting funds somehow because you're always helping other nations. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. You want to get nations to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, not keep getting free stuff from America or wherever else either.
Farmers like Boyd rely on loans to plant for the upcoming season, with the hope that the harvest will pay it off and bring home some profit. In fact, about 1 million American farmers rely on the USDA for financial assistance every year. But just days before planting season starts, Boyd says he hasn't been able to get a loan yet. And he says he's not the only one.
They want you to show them on paper how you're good for that operating loan and how you're going to pay it back. I can't pay it back with $8 beans and $6 beans and $3 corn.
The majority of grain exported from the United States is stored in grain elevators. In Kansas alone, one grain elevator can export millions of dollars of goods.
This is in Pawnee County in Kansas. This is a grain elevator site. This is where farmers will bring their grain, stuff that they've harvested, like milo and wheat and soybean and corn. It is stored in these bins, these large concrete bins, and then sold to exporters, companies who are willing to buy that. And right now, it is very difficult to move some of this stuff.
They could come in and sell wheat for $5.58. It was down 14 cents today.
Kim Barnes has been buying and selling each year's harvest for Kansas farmers for over 50 years.
All these bins are full, and they're full of milo.
That's $5 million worth of grain, Barnes says. Grain that countries like Ethiopia and others depend on for food aid.
And so what's going on with the milo? Why do you have so much of that right now? What are you seeing in the market?
We just don't have any market for it. There's nobody wanting to buy it.
5 months ago, Barnes says USAID bought over 200 million metric tons of milo from American farmers. Today, with no market for that grain, he's desperate.
So that's some of the latest too going on in politics. We're going to get into some other things too. Dr. Umar Johnson or something else. So the strikes are finally done in New York State. So that was a statewide thing. It was huge. I want to show some more of that, or talk about the conclusions that was made. But also, just speaking of corrections and also juvenile detention facilities, a lot of things have went on that shouldn't have and still do. There's something out just now that has to do with the youth, the young children in the juvenile detention center, and they are forced to fight each other, things like that. So when we're thinking about the adults and things that are going on with them in these facilities, also want to keep in mind too, what about the youth? I've heard so many tragic stories, and it makes me think of the movie. What is all that noise out there? Keep it down. Getting deported. Called The Sleepwalkers. There was a movie called Sleepwalkers. It was with 4 men. They had a horrendous life in a juvenile detention facility. And it's interesting how we watch movies and things like that, but then you hear about documentaries where for some reason boys are mistreated. They are in facilities that, yeah, they did bad things or whatever got them there, but people tend to punish quote unquote bad boys. And you see that when they get older. Don't think that you're not included in this, because this could be anyone. Okay. So there's something sinister sometimes about people that have authority over people that are caged. So I want to show this. This is something that just came out. And if y'all don't want to listen, y'all don't have to listen. Y'all don't even have to come to my channel, to be honest. But
put up the picture for mass.
Gladiator fights. I want to just show some of this.
These individuals are supposed to be in charge of our youth through the California Juvenile.
Because I'll say this too. Y'all don't, you guys just run around and hop on different channels and do whatever y'all do, right? That's what y'all do. That's y'all. Do y'all, right? If you're gonna come to my channel, you should subscribe and you should interact. Otherwise, you ain't doing nothing. You ain't saying nothing. You ain't doing nothing. Be more meaningful. Stand up for what's going on around here in the streets and around the world. That's what y'all need to be doing. You're doing nothing. That's part of the problem. It's not the doers. It's the people that ain't doing. You're just as responsible for what goes on in the correctional facilities that your taxpaying dollars is going to, but you don't want to pay attention. You never want to sign nothing. You never want to help somebody do a petition. You don't want to help people get into positions of political office. Then you have no room to really complain. I hear how people say that. I'm like, well, people are entitled to their opinions and stuff like that. But no, you people just sit around, or whether you're at work or you're sitting around, most of y'all at home. So be honest, most of y'all right at home. You have to start being more forceful, or something's going to force you anyway. So at least mentally, listen to some of what we have to say on here and check out the news, because I show you the receipts on everything, right? But you got to start getting more active, y'all. Y'all just be sitting around. You can get your head blown off sitting around. Stop thinking that because you're sitting on the sideline and you don't never got nothing to say unless you with your bestie, and then you can't even shut up. You ain't making no difference in the world. So if you're not going to do it, there's some of us that will. Some of us are going to get with other groups of people that's willing to do the damn thing. So please don't get in our way when the time comes. And that means coons. That means white people. That means some black people too. That means anybody. Don't get in our way, because we're going to make you get out the way. See, you have plenty of time to formulate your ideas, work on theories, look into things for yourself, and then have something to go off on. So when somebody comes up to you with a mic and says, how do you feel? You can say something other than, I don't like it. I like it. No, I don't like it. I don't know. Y'all never have no points to stand on. But I know once I get going over here, y'all try to jump me sometimes and stuff like that, but it'll never happen because I'm protected anyway. But I see Americans, if the Americans in the house say something, if you're from somewhere else, say something too. Y'all don't stand on business. So because you don't stand on business, this is why we ain't getting nowhere all this time. So when somebody comes in and says, well, listen, we about to shake stuff up. So y'all ready? Y'all was like, yeah, shake it up like a snow globe. Then he got to shaking it, and y'all don't like that. You're hard to please. But at the same time, you're hard to even get any thoughts out of your heads. When somebody gives you the mic, what do y'all say? If I was to pass y'all a mic, what would you say? What would you say about politics? What would you say about anything that's going on around the world? What would you say? We finally got a voice, or more of a voice around here, and can come together and do things, but y'all don't do it. I don't know what y'all problem is. I don't get it. It's like you guys are in a fog. And hopefully you come back, because at times, because I'm going to talk about astronomy. We got a blood moon coming. I'm going to talk about the effects of what's going on in space and how it affects us here in the world. But I want to talk about that. I'll talk about encouragement too, because I encourage y'all to have a voice, whichever it is. But that's how you come together and you're able to formulate things together as people. But you can't just keep sitting back, talking out your asses and using people and just using people's time and information and stuff and doing nothing with it. You're sitting on it. And then you think that nothing's going to come to you. Use the information that you're getting, that we're trying to provide for y'all. Yeah, some of it's there for you to get anyway. But we still like to, people like me, like to kind of analyze things, pull stuff apart, and just see more of what's in the context of what's going on. Y'all can keep sitting there. You're going to get ran over by an 18-wheeler. You're going to get knocked off the road. You're going to get thrown off of bridges. You might fall out of a helicopter that I've been telling y'all are going down. We'll be talking more about that too, because I told y'all specific aircraft that's going down. Y'all scared to get on planes. When have you heard a plane crashing? You didn't hear a plane crashing. You heard of someone hitting a plane. You're not listening. Y'all not listening. And they're holding back information that I'm going to give you on here, because I'm not just looking for them to give us information. I'm seeking it. I'm going to find it and I'm going to bring it on here. Y'all running around here scared to fly in an airplane when it's not even the airplane that's doing it. Y'all know how to pay attention. It's free. It's so free to pay attention. Let's continue. So I want to see what's going on here. So this is what the Juvenile Detention Center.
Detention Center. They have now been charged for allegedly instigating gladiator fights between youth while they watched and laughed, according to the indictment. More than 24 detention officers at a Los Angeles area juvenile correctional facility face criminal charges for allegedly staging gladiator fights between youth detainees. 24. Let me talk about that number for a moment. If you have 24 juvenile detention officers doing something like this, that means it is ingrained in the culture of that facility. You cannot tell me supervisors were unaware. You cannot tell me that the commanding officer was not aware. You cannot tell me that the director was not aware. 24? We're talking about children. You don't think these youth said something to somebody at some point at some time? Juvenile detention centers, number one, most of them are adverse to rehabilitation or guidance or structure. When I was a teenager, I was in and out of juvenile detention myself. I was a foster child inside and outside of juvenile detention custody, both internally and on probation. It was an insane system. Then it seems to be a more insane system today. But what I never saw were officers engaged in this level of negligent supervision.
I like that Dr. Rashad Ritchie shared that too, because he has a doctorate. He is a professor at a college, and he also professes right here on YouTube.com. It's called Indisputable. His name is Dr. Rashad Ritchie. For those that don't know, he's a very, very educated man, stands on business. He's been through some struggles in his life. He's talked about them before. He's come so far, so much further than a lot of people have gotten that haven't even dealt with half of what he's dealt with in life. So that's why you know too that there's always a way to make it. Like there's always a way to make it, at least a lot of the time. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of from you, and then the support from other people too. So I'm gonna let him finish on this, and I'll
supervision and criminal activity.
give some commentary.
Those children there, many of them come from broken environments. They need guidance. They need mentorship. There's more. The indictment stems from a probe that began early last year, after surveillance video was leaked to state investigators that show several teenagers beating a 17-year-old child, and what appeared to be a string of coordinated attacks as several probation officers looked on and laughed. The footage obtained by the LA Times shows those one-on-one fights breaking out inside a room at the Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, December 22nd, 2023, when multiple detainees were seen eating breakfast as the facility's officers supervised them. The youth who was targeted is seen standing at the far end of the room while multiple others file in, charge at him, and start punching him. Each fight lasts a few seconds before they cease their attacks and calmly return to eating breakfast or leaving the room. However, with each attack, the teen is visibly worn down. He suffers a barrage of kicks and punches after being knocked to the ground at least twice by two different teens. Throughout the attacks, most of the detention officers are seen acting more as bystanders rather than running interference to de-escalate the violence. One female officer is seen on surveillance video smiling and laughing after one attack ends. A male officer who intervened in one of the fights is seen smiling and nodding at one of the attackers. A month after the attacks, the Los Angeles County Probation Department announced that 8 probation officers connected to the incident had been suspended from their positions. They should have been arrested, not suspended, but actually arrested. The only reason they were suspended instead of arrested at the very moment is because they don't value the population that they are in charge of supervising. That's the only reason. Nor do they value the families that are connected to these youth. After the surveillance video was leaked to the California Attorney General's office, an investigation was launched, which ultimately led to a criminal indictment accusing 30 officers, including the director of the juvenile facility, of facilitating at least 69 fights between July and December 2023 involving 143 teens and child detainees between the ages of 12 and 18. The accused officers were charged with child endangerment and abuse, conspiracy, and battery. The Times reported that an attorney for the 17-year-old victim seen in the surveillance footage of the December 2023 fight petitioned the release of her client, citing unsafe conditions. The lawyer, Cherie Albin, said her client's nose was broken during the attacks, but he wasn't rendered any medical treatment until days after the incident. The LA County Probation Department stated that it, quote, fully applauds and supports the indictment, adding that the staff members who have been charged have all been placed on unpaid leave. The case is ongoing. You all didn't do the job you're supposed to do in the first place. That's why the video had to be leaked. So damn your badge and damn your statement. These are children. You know, sometimes children, and I understand this as a mentor today, youth that seem as if they deserve our love the least are the ones who need our love the most. That's how it works, period. All right, Yas, thoughts here.
Yeah, this is yet another example, I think our third in 2 days.
Yeah, cute. That's about it. Half the time she don't even know what she's talking about. So I like when you bring people on and just, come with it. I'll be playing around. Thank you. I appreciate the new subscriber. I'm going to get right into one more Dr. Richie video. And this has to do with a woman being slammed in her house. Guess what race she is? We're going to get right into that. It bothered me a lot. I want to talk about gender relations. That's part of my point of this.
By the police because she dared to ask a question. Here it is.
Come
I could be detained in my car. I've been asked to go to my car. With my kids. I don't have my kids.
She's gonna make her. See, this. Dude, no. Get off me. Get off me. Whoever will get off me now. Get off me.
I hope y'all happy because y'all know damn well I didn't do it. Why did you just slam?
Okay, put it up full mass. You will see the Ohio police officer seen on the video lifting a black woman in the air and body slamming her head first because she questioned why is she being detained. Let me give you the background to this horrific story. January 2024, De'Ara Fields, now 26, was among multiple family members engaged in a chaotic, heated argument that involved some pushing and shoving when Akron police arrived and broke up the fight, separating the family members on opposite sides of their living room. Miss Fields was standing still when Officer Shoemaker began to put her in handcuffs. When she posed the question, why was she being arrested? He said he was only, quote, detaining her. As she continued to question the officer, Shoemaker, without provocation, grabbed the plaintiff, lifted her into the air, and body slammed her head first to the ground, according to the official complaint. He then took Miss Fields outside, put her into his police car. Miss Fields was given a citation for resisting arrest and a summons to appear in court. So put up the local police.
So that was one of the latest things that came out as far as police brutality on a female. Now we know that police brutality has affected different people, but it's way overpopulated with Black people. And in closing, I just want to say that also, y'all got to stop treating us like we're different than human because it shows so much. Black people are the original people, regardless of how you feel about it. In anything I say, I'm Kiy NY7. Anybody that's new or anything, I appreciate you, and I'll debate you on anything. Anything you hear me say, and I'm gonna pull up with receipts, and I don't pull them out of my ass. Okay, they're real receipts always. So stop thinking that we don't feel pain, that you have to be more aggressive when you grab us, when you do stuff to us. Our voices have more bass in them. They're deeper. We have stronger voices. And yes, some of our DNA is strong. It shows strength. That doesn't mean we don't have feelings. I'm brewing some coffee. I didn't even do it at the same time. Y'all put your hands on us with more aggression as if you are about to battle an animal, and it's not fair. One more point I wanted to make too was Black men get it too. We know that, right? But where are the men when these women are getting abused? There's always a single mom in the house. There's always a single woman somewhere, even more vulnerable against the odds. Because if you got this type of skin, they ain't rocking with you. They're not rocking with you. You call the police and see what happens. You call the police to get this dispute taken care of. What'd she do? He slammed her head first, and it pissed me off, man. But it didn't just piss me off because he did it. It pissed me off because ain't never no man around. How come there's never no man around to be like, before that even got to that point? Everyone's been bailing out on Black women. Everybody. You're full of lies and deceit when you pretend that you have our backs. There's something in you that should tell you should, but you don't. You never have our backs. Y'all even pumped Kamala up to think she was going to win something. She ain't winning nothing, but she didn't have what it takes, and she damn sure wasn't the race or race is. My point is this, people. If you have females in your life, or if you have time that you're willing to give to talk with a woman sometimes, talk to a woman sometimes. We need it. I said we. I don't care who that woman is. Sometimes they just want to have a conversation. Sometimes they're going through something and they don't really know what to say, and then you don't see them again because they done got killed. This is domestic disputes that's going on a lot, and they're at an all-time high. But it's also other things that have been going on that are, that are more in our control, and nobody's doing nothing about it. And I don't understand it, other than the fact that it just plays into this thing that people feel when they see a Black person, like, y'all fear us so much that you already are in a defense mode. I got to defend myself. Defend yourself against what? Against you and your Blackness. You don't need no more of a reason for that. Then there's a lot of child abuse cases that have been on the rise too. And honestly, it's looking like it's more Black women that's just not doing the right thing with some of their kids. It's other women too. But if you look on YouTube, you're mostly seeing Black women, especially if it's a really horrendous case where the kids was in there by themselves and the house was a whole hot mess, and she need to do something, and it did. Oh, you're absolutely right. But you got to understand too that there's a lot of unbiased giving of the news to where it's formulating your views on us, your views on people in general. You know, it just really is. And it's sad. It really is sad. And it shows too how much y'all care, because it was almost 20 people in here, right? And then when I started saying stuff and going in on stuff, the numbers will move. Sometimes they're actually moving and sometimes they're not. I appreciate the new subscriber though. Appreciate it. My thing is this channel shows different things and information. I always back up my information. If it's something you don't like, go to another channel, because you're not going to get fed what you're supposed to get anyway. So that's on you. I don't waste time with people. I don't like people wasting my time either. So I don't come on here to waste somebody's time. But I had to say that because we just need to see more of y'all men active. And I seen something yesterday too. A woman came in a hotel because her kids was acting up. There was a Black woman and she came in there. She was loud, up and down, up and down. I was like, see, these are the examples that people are talking about, that show on YouTube and other places too, where, you know, they show us like being loud and stuff. So there is a certain demeanor that we could work on, and we do need to work on, we will. But at the same time, it's just like you're not even having conversations with people to understand what even got them to where they are, and possibly to help. So that's the point I wanted to make. And yeah, so I may be able to show. I had some things in here. I was going to end it. I may still end it, but let's see what I might end up pulling up next. We can close out with Dr. Umar.
Selma, Alabama, Friday, March 21st. Who pulling up? Where my Alabama Africans? Where are my Alabama Africans? Selma, Alabama. Many of you Negro males, you are jealous because you are not me. You are jealous that you don't have the credentials or the following. You are jealous because you haven't made 1% of the impact I've made on the African race. So I will not be entertaining. And the other reason I'm not going to entertain this, the other reason that I'm not going to entertain this is because for those with a little bit of common sense, if you just read between the lines a little bit, those of you with a little bit of common sense, I think y'all have heard enough from my princess. Y'all have seen enough from me that if you got a little bit of common sense, you will already know what this is all about. If you just got a little bit of